Hi everyone, Aaron here. Just giving you an update on my EMDR sessions that I'm having. This week it's number 7 and last week was number 6. So I'm just going to report on last week because it takes me about 5 days to process everything. So last week on Wednesday I had that session. We went in and we started, following the fingers, and I was processing all about fear, about deserving the punishment that I got, and nothing really was happening. So I kind of, you've got to be honest because it's costly, and so I just said, look, nothing much is happening. I don't know if it's working, if it's actually just desensitized me to that feeling of worthlessness, blame, shame, all that kind of stuff. It's been an incredible process. I find it really quite exciting, quite anxious. I'm quite nervous when I go in, and I ride that roller coaster afterwards for about 3 or 4 days. But this time, after I said nothing much is happening, I don't know how we came to it, but we were talking about the shame and the guilt and the public humiliation, and that's all the fear stuff, and we talked about the deserving of the punishment and things like that. And I'm a very visual person, and so I had this visual interpretation of what that looked like. And to me, I'm going all mythical and kind of fantasy film here, but it was very much sort of like a swamp with intestines, and it was all like this quicksand kind of thing. It was really disgusting and horrible. I was looking at it from an outsider's perspective, so I could see it there, and it was all just really disgusting. But then there was a part of me that kind of felt that I was in there getting dragged down, and I could just barely get a breath before I get towed under again. So I kind of came up with that. That was kind of, that's how I've sort of explained things in my life, is always sort of either analogies or visual representations. So she said, my psychologist said, well, let's notice that and let's go into another round. So we did that, and then I didn't feel sad, or I felt emotional, but this is another visual that I had. It was like an albatross soaring above the swamp and sort of rolling hills and kind of thing like that, and it was just like, oh my God, I feel so free, and I feel so there was a sense of unknown, but there was a sense of a lot of sense of freedom, and it was amazing. However, I think that's when maybe my protective parts just went, you don't know what it's like out there, that's really scary, you need to come back down to the swamp. And at that moment, it was almost like a hand came out of the swamp and grabbed me and pulled me back down into that swamp. So yes, I haven't been smoking anything, I haven't been taking any mushrooms or anything like that, but that's the visual that I had. So it's very, and that's the thing. EMDR just is quite amazing in the fact that it just elicits these responses from your body and also from your mind, and that's what I kind of had. So, but I didn't know where that sort of the albatross soaring above everything and feeling really free came from, and so my psychologist said, well, it must come from somewhere in your life. And so then I thought about it, and I thought, well, the moment that I felt free was in 1993. And if anyone knows me, I always talk about 1993. I always talk about the music, the clothes, the trends, the lifestyle, everything like that. And to me, that is almost like Genesis for me. It's kind of where my life began, and it was the moment that I moved out of home, and I had full independence, and I was like, wow, this world is so wide and amazing. And I met amazing people at nursing, in my nursing class, and in the nursing school, and also at the nurses' hostel that I lived in, and I think that was the representation of the albatross soaring. It was kind of like, wow, freedom, unknown, scary, yes, but so just so much love, and so much like inquisitiveness, just really. Yeah, so anyway, so we touched on that a bit, and I did become a bit emotional about that, and I do become emotional about that. And so I left that session, let the hangover come in, which kind of just, created this big, massive fog for me. And I just really couldn't put anything into words, like even explaining it to my wife, explaining it to other people. I was just like, oh no, there was just like this swamp thing, and then there was like this bird flying. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? So anyway, Friday I went into my session, my talk therapy session with Verity, and we just talked about that the whole time. And we came to the realization, we did. Anyway, it was basically, yes, that albatross soaring above that crap was in 1993 when I left home and moved into the hostel and started my nursing training. And it was, I became a bit emotional during that time, talking about that. And she asked me, what is it about that time that makes me emotional? And I was going like, well, I don't know, I'm not sad about that time. But then we came to the sort of realization that it was grief, and the fact that this explains November 2025 when we had the nursing reunion. And it basically, 1993, move out of home, amazing, the world is my oyster, it's just incredible, what an incredible place, not being controlled by anyone, not being abused by anyone. Met my friends from the nurses' hostel, new friends, and new friends from the nursing class, and yeah, we were kind of all in the same boat. However, for me, it was like, oh my God, it was, I call it the family I chose. It was kind of like, oh my God, these people, they're not judging me, they're just treating me like a human, they're just respecting me, they're not telling me what to do. And yeah, it was predictable. So they were predictable because at home, my home life was very unpredictable. I didn't know from one day to the next how someone was going to be reacting. So I was kind of jumping from emotion to emotion to try and kind of figure out, navigate my way through life. So when I went to the nursing, when I went into the city and I lived in Christchurch, and it was very consistent. Everyone was just like, yeah, this is how we do it. Hey, how's it going? Cool. Hey, how's your day? I was like, what? This is really weird. So anyway, and then all of a sudden in 95, it kind of ended very abruptly for me because I didn't make it to the graduation. And, growing up, you just move on. But then the reunion came along and last year in November, and then I went to it. And I was like, yeah, cool. Can't wait, and went to it. And then all of a sudden when I saw the girls, I just went, oh my God, what is happening? And I literally didn't know what was going on until this last week when I had this EMDR and also the talk therapy, was that, holy shit, you're back in my life, I can't let you go now. And yeah, it's kind of really hard to talk about, but it's that whole, holy shit, I can't, and after our night, having a couple of drinks and dinner, it was like, I need to see you individually, each of you, before I go. And this is the thing, my body was just reacting. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was just like, oh my God, why am I so emotional? Why am I just so, holy shit, I don't know what's going on. It was just like my body was just reacting in this really weird way. And to the point where it was the day I was leaving to come home. It was a Wednesday, and my body just went, I don't think so, you're not going anywhere. Like, you're going to leave these people, you've just met up with them again, and now you're going to leave, and that's going to be it. And you're going to leave this family, or this group of friends that kind of were your family and were so important to you back then. And you can't do that. So my body just went, I don't think so. And that's when I had to call Lifeline, which I kind of couldn't get through to. They disconnected me 3 times, and I was like, oh my God. So then I ended up having to reach out to my classmates and just say, I'm sorry, but I just need someone. And they dropped everything. And yeah, they came and they kind of rescued me, and they spent the day with me, and I got in the plane and I came home, and then sort of, everything sort of fell apart, and we all put everything back together again. So, you know, I look back at that time and go, oh my God, it's the worst time, because, you know, I was, you know, I did go through a time where I did have some suicidal thoughts, not a plan or anything like that, just a general feeling. And I just went, oh my God, this is the worst time of my life. But now I'm in this position now where I'm getting EMDR, and it's bringing up stuff that I would never have actually brought up by myself. I would never have gone in and gone, actually, this is happening for me. So EMDR for me is, and that's the thing, it's personal. What it's doing for me is actually bringing up these things. Then I go to my talk therapy and I talk to, and we kind of put it out on the table, and then we all, you know, collate it, or, you know, organize it nicely. And then all of a sudden it's like light bulb moment. So for me, this explains the reunion, the way I reacted at the reunion, like basically an absolute mess. And it also explains why 1993 to 1995 was such a huge time in my life, so important to me. And so yeah, it's that was an incredible week for me, and I don't know what's going to happen today. I'm so excited, and obviously, if you look back at my video last week, it was kind of a bit somber, and I was a bit anxious, and I didn't know what was going on. But this week, I'm just like, wow. And my whole attitude, I don't know, I'm so calm. I actually had kind of my first little moment recently on the way to a job, and it was a burst of like true happiness, and yeah, that was pretty full on. So it's going to be interesting today. So we're going to see how we go today, and I'm really looking forward to the next 6 if I can afford them. But it's something that I think that I need, and it's an incredible journey at the moment. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. See ya.